Hey, what is good, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. And as you might see already on the screen, we're going to start a brand new tutorial series, and this is going to be about the logging module which Python has to offer. We are going to attempt to go from assuming that you have zero knowledge of Python logging module to understanding how logging can be implemented in a production grade application. So without any further delay, let's get started. So I have Visual Studio Code open, and I'm on this project called as 30 days of Python logging. So I started this as a Twitter journey almost 22 days back, where I wanted to increase whatever knowledge I had of Python logging, and we are at day 22. So if you are a Twitter user, you can consider following me there as well. I'll leave the handle somewhere, I think, on the screen. You will see my Twitter handle as well. You can consider giving me a follow there. It's just a kind of detour. Let's now actually get started. So before we dive deeper into the hows of the logging, let us first understand the why of the logging. So I have a simple code which demonstrate addition of two numbers, and each of the code has a lot of print statements. If I run this, I'll get the output as now. If you look at the output of these print statements or the output of this code, the print statement are firstly missing contextual information such as the time at which this print statement happened, the line number, the module, and the function name, etc. So where all this information came from. Now you might say that okay, I can add this using I can add more lines of code, and then this same information can be displayed. But again, the second problem that would arise is the formatting of the formatting of whatever extra code you added. You'll have to copy that formatting to each and every of this print statement, and imagine if you have thousands of print statements, you'll have to copy the formatting everywhere. So the second problem is the formatting of the code. Third is writing the output of the print statements to a source other than the terminal. Currently, if I run this code, let me run actually a working version, and the output is written to a terminal by default. Now to change that behavior, again, you can change that behavior if you write a hell lot of code, but why do that when you already have a logging module? And even if you do that, you'll also have to handle threading and all. So to avoid all these three pain points, we can use the logging module which does this for us, and we can actually concentrate on logging the codes, coming up with meaningful messages, and leave all the underlying problems which are caused by this to be solved by the logging module. So with that out of the way, now let's get started with the logging module. Logging is part of the standard Python package, and you do not need to separately install it, and you can just import it by calling import logging. And now if I do something called as let's just comment out this thing, and if I do logging dot save logging dot warning, we'll come back in a minute to why I chose warning and not anything else. So if you see, it's displayed the warning message, and in addition to that, it's displayed the message which we gave. It displayed what kind of log this is, and the name of the logger, which is always root. You can change that, but we'll come back to that later. So you can see this is already better than the print statement which we had. Now let us go back to why we chose the warning module back and explore why we chose warning only, and how what else does the logging have to offer. So now let us go over to the documentation, Python documentation, and I am at the logging page thanks to Vinay Sajib, who has written comprehensive documentation for Python logging. And the basis of Python logging, or at the core, are 5 functions which are offered, and the first is debug, info, warning, error, and critical. We have already seen warning, and to display any warning issues which any warnings which might happen, any code which might potentially lead to some unwanted results, you can mark them as warnings. But in addition to that, there is debug, info, error, and critical. So in addition to say logging dot warning, you can also do logging dot debug, logging dot info, or logging dot error. And so let me just replace this error info, and this is a debug. Now I'm just going to run this again, and you might see that only warning and error are printed. Info and debug are not printed. That is because the logging at the level of logging is by default set to warning. So only error messages which are only logs which are above the level of above or equal to the level of warning are displayed. and you can obviously change that behavior, and we will see how in a short while. These are the functions which you will be mostly dealing with when implementing logging. The Python logging library actually takes a modular approach. By modular, I mean that it's divided into four parts, you can say, and at the heart of them are the loggers, the one which we will be seeing in a short while, handlers, which are responsible for sending the logs to the appropriate destination, filters, which you can use to, as the name suggests, filter out certain log records which you don't want to be displayed, and formatters, just to format the output which we saw a while back. So for example, if we saw this warning root and this info message, we can change this using the formatters. So this is the heart or the core of the logging module. Now we'll just go over and see each of them. Going back to Visual Code, we will actually now see a proper implementation of Python logging module. So up until now, we just saw that we can print different types of messages, but yeah, this just more or less looks like a print statement with some additional input. But this is actually now not how you implement the logging module. As we saw just before, we will start with the first module, which is first class which actually comes as part of the Python logging module, and that is the loggers. So logger, actually what you're seeing here is actually an instance of the logger class. So everything you can call on the instance of a logger class, but you cannot actually instantiate the logger class, say like logger is equal to logging.Logger. So this is not recommended. What you actually have to do is you have to do logging and call the getLogger method, and this will give you nothing but an instance of the logger class. This will actually give you an instance of the logger class, and then you can perform all the operations which are available. So we'll just look at the implementation of getLogger, and if you see, it actually just returns a instance of the logger class only, nothing more. So yeah, so and using this you can then actually call the same methods. Looks like I've spelled it wrong. Yeah, well, just let me remove an extra R. And well, as you know, since this, let me mark it as a warning because we have not seen the level changes and all. So yeah, this is an info message. Okay. Now again, this is not that useful. Well, this should be a warning message, but just to clear the confusion. But this is not pretty comprehensive. Now we will look at some other things such as the formatting. So what you can now do is on this log as part of the logging dot basicConfig. So this is another method which is available in logging. So it is available as part of the logging module only, and here you can actually display the actually format how your log is printed as well, and you can set the level as well. So let the basicConfig, as you might see, it takes in kw args, and the kw args, whatever it takes are given here. Some of them are file name, the file mode, format, the one which you're going to use shortly, the level, as I said, which you can override, the handler, the encoding, and so on. So just some of them. So what we're going to first do is we're going to try and format this log, and so we're going to do something called as format is equal to this, and then level is equal to logging dot debug. So here what we're basically telling is that the minimum logging level is debug and above. So now if we do something called as debug, this will also be not debug, this will also be printed. Yeah, got it right at the third time. Still not actually. Yeah, logging.debug. So got it right eventually. Now we are going to look at the formatting. So for that, let's just go back to the documentation as well, and what are the options which are available for formatting. Is this here? Not here, but LogRecord attributes formatting. Let me just find it, and pretty sure we'll find it in just 1 minute to see. Here we are. Took a while, but yeah. So all the options which are available to this format argument are available here. So you can choose to display the time using the ASCII time, and you can choose to display when the log was created, the file name, the function name, the level name, the line numbers, message, and there's a lot more options which are available to format. Now you might also notice that it uses the %s type of formatting and it doesn't use the f-string formatting, because if you actually see the optimization, it will be somewhere here, I think, optimization. So just to give you an idea, the Python logging module is used, it is optimized to use %s rather than f strings. So do consider, you might, so you'll always see that in anywhere in the logging we will not use f strings, but we will use %s methods as well. So yeah, going back, not deviating, log record attributes. Let's try a few of them, and say you want to print the time when this log was generated, the level of the log, and say the file name where this log came from. So what you can do is %ac time, don't do it in caps, time, any separator, you can just choose any separator you want, file name, let's make sure, yeah, file name, and say you want line number as well, so %line number, and because it's a digit, so I've got line number as well. And now let me try to print this. This is a debug message. So if you see, the log is much better. The only thing it doesn't display is actually the message, so let me add that as well. Not dollar but percentage. Yep, so if you see, this log already looks better than what we had here. It has the timestamp, it has the name of the file, it has the line number, and it has the message as well. So yeah, that is the basic config which is available, and this basic config is now available to all the type of logs. Suppose I just copy this and I do an info. So that is about the basic formatting. You can use the format to actually display it in the required format. This format, so if you're writing a production grade application, this format is actually agreed with the team, that what you want to see in the logs, and you can just finalize this, write the format, set the levels, and you can actually then all the logging methods which we'll call will have this formatting. We've seen the basic config and how the format helps us to actually format the log which is displayed. Now taking this one step forward, if you see now taking this one step forward, it has the AC time which will help us display the date, but this format of the date can also be formatted using another parameter called as, I think it's date_fmt, and this uses the same formatting as the standard strf time. So you can, if I do something called as %y, %m, %d, and hopefully this should format the date and it should change it. Time which is displayed as of the log is already taking in this format. So again, you don't actually need to display the logs in the same in the format which are defaulted. You can just change it using the date format. So that is just like an add-on. Moving over to the day 2. Now up until now we are printing logs to the console, which is similar to doing printf. You might say that okay, I can add the time, the file name, everything to a printf and just do this. Why go the extra mile and use this logging module? So now what we're going to do is we are going to see how you can write logs to a file. In the basic config itself, what you can do is you can give an additional parameter, file name, day2.log, and file mode. We're just going to append it, and now if I do logger.info, this info message will be log to the file, not to the file but say to a file, let's say an error. This error message will also be logged to a file, and if I now run this code, if you see, there's no output on the console, but we actually have day2.log, and it's already written the logs which are formatted in the same way as before, but instead of logging it to the console, it's now return it to a file. So this is how you can use basicConfig, supply it a file name and the file mode as a parameter, and you can just continue to log. And if I now write an additional warning, appending warning message to the file. I'm being a little bit fussy about the grammar, but I think that's okay. And now let's see our log file. So if you see, the code is run again, and it's just appended everything to the log file again. So yeah, this is about using the logging module to easily log to a log file. Over to day 3. In day 1 and day 2, we saw how to set up a basic logging and set up the basic config. On the day 1 rather, in day 2 we saw how we could write the log to a log file instead of say to the console. And now in day 3, what we're going to do is we're going to bring all this together, and now we'll see a proper example and how you can actually truly use all the methods which are available as part of the logging. By methods I mean info, debug, warning, error, and help implement a small code, say just to add 2 numbers, and how logging will help you better understand the code flow, not only on the console, but if you write it in the production grade application, it will help you debug issues in production as well. So let's quickly write an example, and I'll see you in 2 minutes. Yep. So welcome back, and I've already written a code, and it's a simple function which takes into integers as input. It's supposed to take into integers because it's just returning a plus b. And what I've done is I've added an info type of log, I've added a warning, and I've added an error as well. So this will give you this is how you would use a logging in a production grade application to explain the flow of your application. Without the logging, you'd have to write print statements everywhere, but again, as I said, the limitations of print are obvious. No writing to while, no context, and no context about the flow of the code as well. So I'm going to run this code now, and let us see what happens. And if you see, it tells us that it is inside the function to add 2 numbers 10 and 20 and the line number. It also shows the warning. Actually, what I've done is I've not included the level, so I'm just going to do one more thing, and which is level %, and we're going to run it again. It doesn't make sense to have logs without a level. Okay, I've done something wrong. I think it is because I've done should be level name. Yeah, it's level name and not just level. And let me just clear the console, and now hopefully it should run. Yeah. Okay, so if you see, the logs are now displayed, and information, the info log, which is just inside the function. It also gives us a warning that there are no checks if the numbers are in integers, which is obvious, which we should check. And if you see now, if I do something like a, this code will now go to the logs. Yeah, if you see, it has a problem. A good thing that it has happened. So 2 things have happened. First is on the info side, we are trying to print decimals, but the input is a string, so that is the first error which has come back. And second is the one which we have handled, unsupported operand type on integer and string. So you can already see that this is much better than print statement. It does give you a lot of information on what is happening inside the code. And this is how logging actually can truly be beneficial in your production grade application. You can log all these events to a log file. The log file then can be retried. So if something goes wrong, you can look at the log file, understand the flow of where your code is currently at, and you can actually make some valid inferences that if something goes wrong, the logs will also tell you, or the logs will actually but the logs will actually tell you. So this is a simple production grade. It could be a production grade code, but it has logging. It has actually all of the basic concepts of logging, at least, which have come together. And so that is what I actually wanted to demo for this. So that is it for this video, guys. I wanted to cover some more parts, but I think the video will be too lengthy. And what we've done is covered the basics of logging, why logging is necessary, how to set up a basic logger, how to display the basic messages, the defaults and all. And we have seen 3 examples. First, to set up a basic logging, the formatting, the types of attributes which are available. Secondly, we have seen how to use the basic config to log to a file. And thirdly, we have seen a full-fledged example of how logging would help you debug actually the flow or understand the flow, and if something goes wrong, which it already has. It's actually gone wrong in two places, in the exception part as well, and the percent in the logging itself as well, but that is something which we'll talk about later. But this will help you understand the basics and how logging could actually benefit, and how you would and how you can actually set up basic logging. For watching, guys. Bye for now. Again, if you're new to the channel, do consider subscribing, liking, and for the algorithm, do share the channel, do share the video with your friends as well. Thanks again.